Hmm. Okay. It's pretty late, and I was about to go to bed, but then the cat that never sits on laps came and sat on my lap, and she's still there. So obviously, I can't move. And then I started thinking about D&D, which is what usually happens if my brain is left to its own devices for more than about 9 seconds. So I thought I'd go through some of what I like to do for game prep, and when I'm trying to think of new ideas, which is just to browse maps and see what ideas I can come up with to do with those maps. This is my first time streaming on YouTube, by the way. This is something would like to try and do, so I'm basically doing this as a bit of a test. I don't know how long this is going to last for. This is very impromptu, very last minute, but if anyone joins in, super welcome. So, if I do this, that should change. Just wait for this to update on the other screen so I can see if it's actually worked. Ah, there we go. Okay. So now you should be able to see not only me, but also the page I'm looking at, which is the Reddit page r/D&D maps. I like to come here for quite a few reasons. Most of these are homemade by users of the Reddit page, and that makes them really interesting, really quirky. And there's a couple I come up with right now that I wanted to look at. So this, first of all, is the first new post on there at the moment. This isn't necessarily something that I would use in game, but I just think the imagination on show here is amazing. The style of this reminds me of some of the old art from the Planescape books, second edition, and obviously Planescape Torment as well. I just think this would be such an amazing place to explore. I'm a little bit jealous actually of the players that get to play with this DM because there's some real imaginative stuff here. Onto maps that you could use within a game. Again, I'm just going to browse through the Reddit for a bit, see what comes up. Geomorphic Halls was one that caught my eye, and oh, sorry, I've done something wrong. No, I haven't. Okay. So the actual map itself is sort of fairly bog standard, but there's these square areas that are cut out, and what the poster has said is that they are meant to be used. Um, there are basically sort of little modular rooms that would go into those slots. But because this is such a weird sort of cave system that the players are exploring, those rooms would change and move. And I could see this being something really cool. Like imagine if you had, say, rooms on a timer, and I would either be just a real world timer, or potentially you could base it on combat rounds. You could say every round or every other round the rooms shift, and the players wouldn't necessarily know this was happening unless they were paying attention. But the room that's in front of them could change to a different room. The room that they're in could move to a different location. Let's say you're in this room. I don't know if you can see my mouse. You may not be able to. So you're in this room in the top right corner having a fight, and then when you finish the fight, that room is now in the bottom left corner, and everything just flips. It'd be even more interesting if this happened while some players were in the room and some weren't, and then they're separated. And then how do you bring those back? And how do you group back up when you don't even really know how to navigate this space? I think that's a really cool idea. Um, Actually, now I'm thinking about it, it reminds me of something from a game called Outer Wilds, um, which is a fantastic game that I've got a really nice long video coming out about sooner rather than later, hopefully. That has this concept of quantum objects that move when you're not looking at them. So as long as you're observing the object, it stays where it is. If you aren't, it moves. So I could see that working in this kind of situation. Possibly, I might come back to that, but the idea of sort of quantum movement in D&D. Yeah, I'm kind of digging that. I'm kind of digging that. Okay, that's just me checking to make sure my volume's working, which it is. Fantastic. I need to be a little bit quiet because I need to not wake people up. Okay, let's browse for another map then. Let's see what else is popular on the subreddit today. This is literally just the front page of r/D&D maps. There's some cool ones here. So this is where I tend to come if I'm preparing for a session. Mostly we play on Roll20. If I'm preparing for a session and I want a location, interesting location for players to explore, this is often where I'll come for kind of combat maps, like this one that you see here, the Swamp Forest map. Let's have a look at this one actually. Okay, this one's pretty cool. I like the sort of red water. Labels itself as a swamp forest, but this almost looks like it could be somewhere on the shores of Avernus or some other sort of hell plane. It certainly looks like there's a bit more going on here than just exploration of a forest. I kind of like having that sort of slightly creepy atmosphere. That's pretty cool. Okay, let's keep moving. A lot of people use this to post their world maps. I think that's really cool. Although for me, that's not super useful, so I tend to skip over those. That's interesting. I just click on the cool stuff. I'm a man of simple tastes, and if I see what looks like a boat with a tree growing out of it, I'm gonna click it. Okay. This is cool. I mean, it's called the Ark, and straight away my imagination's firing on what this could potentially be used for as a location. So it seems like a building that looks like a ship that is at the top of a giant tree. So my first thought is, well, how did this get here? Okay, so obviously at some point this was on the ground or in the water, and the tree has grown up through it, forced its way through, but also pushed this up into the sky. So this would be somewhere the players would have to teleport to or fly to. I'm thinking, why does it look like a building? Now, possibly because the artist creating this had building assets to use, but I don't know, could there be a species? Could there be a race of creatures that used stone to build boats? It's not impossible. If you could make stone magically light enough to float on water, then it would be a very strong material in terms of, you know, seabound combat, that sort of thing. Some cool ideas on this one, actually. Okay, yeah, let's move on. Let's do a couple more. Well, that's where I got the geomorphic halls from earlier. Okay, and some building interiors. It's always good to have. I don't like to use these too much. And again, this is something I want to talk about in another future video. But I feel like the players that I play with, I think I used maps too much in the early stages of the game. So they sort of expect a map for locations to a certain extent. And while this is a cool location, kind of there's no point having a map and showing it unless you're going to do something with it. Like if it's going to be a combat map, or if the locations within that map are going to become important, then use it. Otherwise, I think it's best just to keep it in mind, and then they can have their own version of the building. If it doesn't matter what it looks like, let them come up with their own. I probably want to talk about that more in a separate video. Stop taking your content away from yourself. Right. What else? What else? What else? More interiors. More really cool outdoor stuff. So this is the kind of map that I like. This is quite old school. As I may have mentioned that I play as a player in a second edition D&D campaign. So this kind of map is very reminiscent of the sort of stuff that you'd find in that kind of era of gameplay. So you've got this kind of multi-layered haunted house. It doesn't have to be haunted, but it's certainly ruined. And just so much stuff could be going on here. These are nice and detailed, so these would be great for printing off or for using on a system like Roll20. Yeah, this is this is a map that I played on in our second edition campaign. Yeah, okay, fine. This is not a. Oh, okay. The DM will love that if he ever sees this video. Yeah, this is literally the first building I ever explored while playing D&D. Oh man, we we came to this house because we were hired by like a local sort of bandit lord, who later turned out to be an undead in a mask, but whatever. And we came here and we went. But it was me and my wife the players, and then there a couple of other players who've been playing for a bit longer. We were brand new to the game. We played for like a couple of hours once, and we came to this location, which I literally just realised is readily available on the internet. I think someone had gone missing in the house and we had to find them. And we browsed around the outside, we looked in the windows, we were trying to decide which way we were going to go in. And then we thought, you know what, fuck it, there's a well. There's something shiny at the bottom of the well. So the player who was a fighter jumped down the well and I think fought some bats while like sort of dangling from a rope. I was a wizard and I had at that point like one magic missile, so I just sort of watched. Yeah, fantastic. And then eventually we found our way into the house after about, I think we spent about 2 hours jumping down the well. Then we decided to actually go in the house and start poking around in there. Man, that's old school memories. That's really cool. I'm going to have to save that. Okay. I'm actually logged into Reddit, so I'm going to save that. Okay. Well, that was a fun little find. What else can we find? Hmm. I always find these sort of side-on maps, and I think they look really interesting to make use of. I've never actually used one in a game. I might sort of challenge myself to do that sometime, because obviously a lot of D&D is to do with sort of combat distances and things like that. So I think you'd need like a grid of the room so you could perform combat effectively. But then again, we run plenty of fights without a map at all. So if you could just sort of theatre of mind for the most part, but use this as a guide. This is cool. This is like hand drawn, again, really old school, but lovely, lovely detail. Oh, this looks like a great place to explore. Yeah. Oh, I love this. Okay. Yeah, I think I'm gonna have to challenge myself to try and use some side-on maps. I think that'd be really interesting. I think anyone's in on the chat. I can't actually tell. How does this work? Yeah, you can tell I've never done this before. Oh, I think I saw a hello, but now I've lost it. Does the YouTube Studio app help me with this? No. I'll just have to guess. Yeah, that's really cool. I'm gonna keep that one as well. Keep that one for later. Okay. What else? What else? We've been doing this for a little bit of time. We'll carry on a little bit longer. Oh, I've frozen. Oh, I haven't frozen. I've got this on like an iPad on the side so I can see if it's working. Because I'm not good at this. Okay. But carrying on. What else can we find that's interesting? This is nice. This labels itself as a town entrance. This would be quite interesting to use as maybe sort of a beachfront on like a small island, a pirate island, something like that. I think one of the things you've got to do in a D&D campaign at some point is you've got to give your players a ship. We had one for a while in the second edition campaign that I mentioned. We actually stole it from the cave underneath the house that I just showed you. So yeah, shipboard stuff. That would be cool. Can I see comments? Let's have a look. Do I have chat? How the does this work? I've never used this before. Okay, I'm not going to bother with that now. I'll learn as I go. There's an island. This is a cool island actually. Let's take a look at this. Set this a little bit. So this. Okay, what springs to mind with this one immediately is something like Myst, the old sort of PC puzzle games. What I would do here is almost have this be set up as like a puzzle island, set up a few more elements, and there would be sort of a big island spanning puzzle that players would need to complete before possibly there'd be an opening. Maybe, I don't think you can see my mouse, but this sort of region here would be the opening to maybe a temple or an underground area. You'd be doing things like reflecting light down into a cave. What else did you have to do in Myst? Years ago since I played it. Turning up items in making particular patterns, runes, a few characters as well. But I like the idea of having an encounter that's really cool and involves a lot of dice rolls, but is more sort of, how do I put this? A bit more cerebral rather than combat focused, because combat is fantastic and it's a huge part of D&D, but I like the other stuff as well. I like the fact that you can use dice to simulate other things happening. Okay. A little bit further. We'll do maybe 2 or 3 more, and then I probably should go. The cat, by the way, went about 20 minutes ago, so we should go to bed. Okay. That's just interesting. Oh, the ones I'm scrolling over, by the way, not that they're not interesting, they just don't immediately bring an idea to mind. This is cool. You see straight away, I can imagine the situations in which I would use this in a game, and what kind of stuff would happen. So, actually as a map, it's not that useful, but I mean, if you've seen Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, you can already imagine what I'm thinking of here. Like, oh, here she comes. Hey. This is the young lady that started the problems. This is the reason I'm still up. Say hello? No? Alright, fine. She's aloof. Can't help it. So, road bridge. Goal on one side, players on the other. Or, players in the middle, enemies on both sides. Enemies in the middle, players on both sides. Hacking the ropes away. Just infinite fun with a road bridge. And what I like about this one is that whatever they've done with the sort of blur effect, the perspective here is crazy. So actually this almost looks like it could be a part of the arc map that we looked at right at the beginning. This could be part of the way there. This looks like it's that high up. Nice one. Right. Green threat. Thank you for chatting. I've just worked out how to read your comments, so thank you very much for that. Yeah, she is cute. She is really cute. Here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking like these areas, these locations could be used for kind of just interesting, like you say, a one-shot would be a good one, or just interesting locations to visit during a campaign. I like to just sort of give my players a tour of all the weird, interesting things that I've seen other people do in D&D, or just things that I've come up with in my head. So I think going into a dungeon, exploring the dungeon and leaving is all well and good, but if you can give it that extra bit of spice that makes a session memorable, I think that's really important. Okay, we'll do one more. Just see what springs to mind. See, there's loads here. I could talk about so many of these. I'm not going to do any world maps. I don't really have much to say about those at the moment because I think those are quite personal to you. If I was going to do a homebrew world, I would create my own map. I wouldn't use one created by someone else, but I would use other people's battle maps because I think you can be a lot more specifically interesting with the things that you come up with on a battle map. Okay, last one. Let's take a look at the mines. What could we do with a mine? Okay. This is pretty cool, actually. So, looks like for starters, this would be sort of the first layer of a much larger mining complex. You see this sort of spiral staircase winding down into oblivion. So that could either be where the miners are freshly working, or that could be the descent then into maybe the thing that they dug up that they shouldn't have been digging. I'm interested in what they're mining here though, because there's this sort of cool glowing rocks that they seem to have found, and it looks like that's what they're carting out using this this minecart here. So some kind of magical stones? Almost definitely, they wouldn't be glowing. Maybe something that a mage or a wizard could use to enhance spells? Or maybe something that would be detrimental. What if it's a kind of magical kryptonite? And what if just being in the area dampens your spell ability? Now, if you didn't know about it, maybe you wouldn't notice straight away. But say if you were right up close to it, you were in physical contact with one of these crystals, your spells would just fizzle out, they wouldn't work. Or, and say perhaps that's why they're being mined, because the enemies, say enemies, that's cruel, they might be really nice. The people that live in this region are trying to use them to create anti-magic weaponry, anti-magic arrows, things like that. That could be one thing. They could be magic boosters. It could be something that a mage, wizard, a warlock, a cleric, druid, bard, let's be fair, would have on their person, either in jewelry or hold, and it would actually increase their magical ability. So combat in this area would be interesting then, because it would be about area control, and the fact that this cart here is on rails, you can use that to either push it towards enemy casters if it was to be detrimental to them, or you could keep it for yourself if it was going to be something that was beneficial for you. I don't know. It's like 1:30 in the morning where I am, and I'm just sort of rambling about pictures on Reddit. Well, maybe this was interesting to you. I hope it was. It's something I like to do sometimes, just sort of see what cool, interesting ideas you can come up with based on images for inspiration. It's probably not the most unique topic for a YouTube video ever, but it did give me the opportunity to test out the live streaming stuff a little bit. That's why you see the chat. See, should have been paying attention the whole time, shouldn't I? Green Threat, I'm sorry, you've been chatting away to me and I barely noticed. Floating Islands Park, yeah, I think that's a good point actually. I think that you could do something with that as well, couldn't you? So if you had two sort of airships moving at speed, you could be sort of maybe a rope bridge between them, swinging ropes between them. That'd be excellent. Cool. Right, I think I'm going to end this here, but thanks very much for tuning in, especially you, Green Threat. Next time, I promise I'll actually read what you're saying, and maybe we'll have a conversation. That might be nice. Quick impromptu stream. I think I've learned how to do it now, so maybe next time it'll actually go well. Until then, see you later.